Yes, it's I, the Mystic Philosopher. And thanks for tuning into this post and another perspective with I, the Mystic Philosopher. It's high time for reason and for reasoning. The title of this talk or this presentation today is the Neo Colonizers, aka the Neo Colonialism, are taking over Africa, the motherland, our motherland. For some time now, I have been watching in horror, listening in pain, and following up in disgust on the number of reports that are coming out of the motherland Africa via the various news and social media, and what may be best described as the new covert, sinister, overt, devious and subversive Neo Colonizers, Neo Colonialism, an invasive species, aka the Chinese, desperately colonizing the entire continent of Mother Africa. I've been watching in horror, listening in pain, and following up in disgust on the number of reports that are coming out of Mother Africa via the various news and social media on the new covert, sinister, overt, devious and subversive Neo Colonizers, Neo Colonialism, an invasive species also known as the Chinese, and their stone cold alien robotic creatures mistreatment, denigration, enslavement, financial, physical and sexual exploitation of my fellow African brothers and sisters. I have been watching in horror, listening in pain and following up in disgust on the number of reports that are coming out of Mother Africa via various news media, various news and social media, and the new covert, sinister, overt, devious and subversive Neo Colonizers, Neo Colonialism, an invasive species also known as the Chinese, and the so-called African leaders, aka the African politicians, sell out collaboration and their unconscionable betrayal of their own fellow, of their own African ancestors and their own heritage, and their unconscionable betrayal of their own African people to our enemies and the invasive species for filthy lucre. And for those of you, my listeners, that do not know what filthy lucre is or what it means, it is money, especially when gained in a dishonest or dishonorable way. But please stay tuned, for shortly you will both see, know and understand why they, the so-called African leaders, are called politicians. And I also call them so-called leaders, because the evidence show and has illustrated in nature that a leader is one who leads by being in front of everything that confronts him or her and his or her people. A leader leads by practical example. And that a leader is definitely not one that is isolated in some mansion, some great house, or some bunker, and is out of touch with the daily life and experiences of his or her people. That he or she is falsely claiming to be leading or claiming to lead. And yes, I have been watching in horror, listening in pain, and following up in disgust the number of reports that are coming out of Mother Africa via the various news and social media, and the new sinister, rather overt, devious and subversive Neo Colonizers and invasive species, aka the Chinese, and the racism, the bigotry, the humiliation, the dehumanization, the discrimination, the subjugation, the verbal abuses and physical assaults, the venomous hatred, the anger and aggression that are being meted out and upon my fellow African brothers and sisters by these very strange humankind, that to the grieving of the spirits of our most honorable African ancestors and our ancestral gods, and with much regrets, and for whatever the reason or reasons they have now found themselves, some of my people have now found themselves trying to survive and trying to stay alive in a very strange land and among some very strange people, in the strange place called China, while hoping and praying that they will or that they may make it back to their homeland, Mother Africa, safely. I was particularly incensed after watching 2 online videos wherein a lone African brother was set upon, beaten to a pulp, and possibly beaten to his death by a group of strange mankind consisting of around 4 or more ravenous wolf-like Chinese males with baseball bats, hockey sticks, and other blunt objects, and kicks and licks. And I became even more incensed while watching another video wherein another of my lone African brother was viciously attacked by an angry mob of these strange humankind in what that can or may be best described as some very hungry, violent, aggressive, and angry piranha or piranhic Chinese males and females, ferociously attacking and assaulting my helpless and defenseless brother like piranhas waiting to eat him and devour him alive. So today, in my righteous indignation at these very malevolent humankind, also known as malevolent kind of human, I am inspired to share with you, my fellow African brothers and sisters, some of my thoughts and perspectives on the following 3 very important words and a phrase. And the first word is the word trust. The second word is the word curse. And the third is the word politician. And the phrase is an invasive species. And my objectives are as follows. Number 1, first and foremost, my main objective is to identify name and call out by name characteristics. And from my perspective, who and what are the Neo Colonizers, aka the Neo Colonialism that are taking over Mother Africa. And two is to show and prove the power of words and some of the secrets that they encode. Or if you prefer, the secrets that are encoded in them. 3 is to show the difference between trusting, believing, and knowing. 4, to show the potential danger that exists if or when we confuse believing or trusting with knowing by thinking or accepting that they are the same. 5th, to briefly explain the meaning and definition of a curse and what it is. 6 is to show and prove that to mistake or to confuse trust with knowledge can be a curse, and that it is indeed a curse. 7, to show and expose to you all, my African brothers and sisters, who and what a politician by meaning and definition really and truly is. 8, to explain what is an invasive species and to draw analogy with the Neo Colonizers, aka the Chinese. 9, to briefly remind you of Charles Darwin's prophecy. 10, to hopefully appeal to your activated common sense that you need to get up, stand up, and defend with your life, if needs be, our motherland, Africa. 11 is to prove to you that if you, my fellow Africans, don't root up and root out an invasive alien species as soon as you recognize it, then it will most certainly root you up, root you out, and replace you with itself or with themselves. So, a young boy trying to make sense of things and of his religion once asked his very faithful, religious, and God-fearing Christian mother, "Mama, what is the meaning of trust? And what is the meaning of a curse?" Her response was, "Trust, my son, is to feel and know that you are safe and secure from all harm and from all alarm. And a curse means that if you are negligent in your trust in God, and especially if you neglect to trust and obey those that God has placed as leaders and authority to rule over us, then that is a curse to you. And bad things will come upon you, and all manner of evil will overtake and befall you. So son, please trust and obey, for there is no other way for you to avoid being cursed. Be it the curse from God or from man," unquote. But what does the English people, the owners of the language, and their dictionaries say trust mean? What do they say trust is? And to be even more precise, what does the English lexicographers say that the word trust mean and that the word trust is? Well, according to one online dictionary, the meaning and definition of the word trust is as follows, and I quote, "A firm belief in the reality, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something," unquote. Now please note that trust is not a firm knowledge, but that it is a firm belief. Meaning, trust is not a firm knowledge or a firm knowledge in the reality, or rather the reliability, the truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. Let me repeat that. Trust is not a firm knowledge of or a firm knowledge in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. In other words, to believe is not to know. Or to be even more correct, when we say that we believe, we are actually saying that we really don't know. Or when we openly confess or openly admit that we believe, we are openly admitting that we do not know. But more on that at another time. To say that you trust someone or that you trust something is to say and to mean that you firmly believe in them or in the thing, but not that you know that someone or that you know that something. To say you trust is to say that you firmly believe, which is also saying that you really don't know. In other words, trusting and knowing, or to trust and to know, is not the same thing. For example, to say that I trust that you won't hurt me, is to say that I believe that you won't hurt me, which is the same as saying that I really don't know that you won't hurt me. To say that I trust you will be there for me when I need you the most does not mean that I really know that you will be there when I need you the most. For even though your best intention might be your sincere desire to be there for me, but unforeseen circumstances, among many other things, can upset your best intention to be there for me when I need you the most. Trusting is hoping, and hoping is not knowing. And what is the meaning of a curse according to the English dictionaries? A curse, according to one online English dictionary, is defined as, and I quote, a solemn utterance intended to invoke a supernatural power to inflict harm or punishment on someone or something, unquote. The online Cambridge English dictionary also defined the word cursed as, and I quote, to say magic words that are intended to bring bad luck to someone, unquote. So just from these two definitions, dictionaries definitions, we can logically and sensibly deduce, know, and conclude that if or when a person or a people has been cursed, or if or when a person or a people is under a curse, then they will exhibit and they will be exhibiting and manifesting the signs and evidence of the consequences of a curse or curses. For example, when a person or a people is cursed, is being cursed, or is under a curse, then even the physically blind that are spiritually awakened and enlightened can and will see all manner of evil, or see that all manner of evil are being done to that person or to that people. You will see all forms of harm being done to them. Them meaning the person or the people that are cursed. And I hereby ask the question, which other race of people or which other group of humans on this, our planet and Mother Earth, that an honest observer know of that has suffered and is suffering more evil at the hands of all the other races of humans and humankind alike. The people that are called, named, carded, listed, and labeled, etc. black, aka the black race. Which other race? None. And that is just one of the many reasons why I, the Mystic Philosopher, under the inspiration of our most honorable African ancestors, have for years been saying to you all, my melaninated skin people, my highly melanin enriched people, we the Earth's original organic pre-Adamic natural native earthly humans, that you must immediately stop calling yourselves the curse word black, and that you must stop answering to the curse word, the curse name black, aka be lack, and all of its synonyms and euphemisms. But regrettably, because of the curse of the black spell that have been cast upon us and are being broadcast daily upon us, even some of the brightest among us still cannot and will not get this message. And even when I spend hours meticulously teaching, lecturing, preaching, singing, talking, doing videos, you name it, with some of you, my people, and you agree that I am right, that my logic makes sense, that you, in less than 24 hours, I see and hear you all revert back to calling yourself the curse word black and answering to the curse word black. And thanks to my most honorable African ancestors, I know that the reason for your stubbornness and for your backsliding, if you will, is because you are under the curse of the black spell. For until you change the name black, your situation will remain the same. But I have much more to say on this one fact elsewhere. So let me continue talking about the words trust and the word cursed, or rather curse. In some sacred scriptures, or to be even more precise, in the Adamic race history and holy book, also known as the Christian Holy Bible, it is written and clearly understood by those that are wise, and I quote, "This is what the Lord or Yahweh says," and I quote, "Curse is the one who trusts in man, who depends on flesh for his strength, and whose heart turns away from the Lord or from Yahweh. He will be like a bush in the wastelands. He will not see prosperity when it comes. He will dwell in the parched places of the desert, in a salt land where no one lives." Unquote. So, if this is at all correct, then our basic activated common sense is hereby telling us that if you put your trust in any man or woman, I might add, you are already cursed. Examples: if you put your trust in a preacher, any preacher, you are cursed. If you put your trust in a doctor, any doctor, you are cursed. If you put your trust in your partner or even your children, you are cursed. If you put your trust in Babylon or Rome and their systems of force and forces, you are cursed. If you put your trust in a government, any human government, you are cursed. The wise man Solomon once said, "When the righteous are in power, the people rejoice. But when the wicked bears rule, the people mourn." And we all can see and know that the poor people of this world today are mourning and groaning. But the people that I would now like to focus on are politicians. If you put your trust in a politician, any politician, man or woman, it means you are cursed. Who is a politician, by the way? Who is a politician? Or what is a politician? And in this particular case, the focus is on the so-called African leaders that are called politicians, and those that call themselves politicians. Now, to answer this question, please don't take I, the Mystic Philosopher's word for it. But please let us listen to and take the words of the English, or the words of the British people that are the originators and the rightful owners of the language and the word politician. Let's take their word for it. Let us hear what some of the brightest English or some of the brightest British scholars, as it relates to words in the English language. These people are known as the British or the English lexicographers. Let us hear what they have to say, who and what a politician is. The first Google search dictionary that I will quote from, and quote for the word politician, and I quote, 1, a person who is professionally involved in politics. Sorry. Yes, so the first Google search dictionary that I will quote for the word politician is, and I quote, 1, a person who is professionally involved in politics. A politician is a person that is who is professionally involved in politics, especially as a holder of or a candidate for an elected office. And 2, a politician is a person who acts in a manipulative and devious way, typically to gain advancement within an organization. Unquote. That's the first Google search dictionary on the word politician. Please verify that for yourself. I'm not making these things up. The second dictionary that I will quote, or second English dictionary that I will quote for the meaning and definition of the word politician and who a politician is the online Merriam-Webster's dictionary. And I quote, 1, a politician is a person experienced in the art or science of government, especially one actively engaged in conducting the business of a government. 2a, a person engaged in party politics as a profession. And 2b, often disparaging, a politician is a person primarily interested in political office for selfish or other narrow, usually short-sighted reasons. Unquote. Again, this is online from the online Merriam-Webster's dictionary. And the third dictionary that I will quote from is called dictionary.com. And I quote, 1, a politician is a person who is active in party politics. 2, a politician is a seeker or holder of public office who is more concerned about winning favor or retaining power than about maintaining principles. 3, a politician is a person who holds a political office. 4, a politician is a person skilled in political government or administration, statesman or stateswoman, a statesman or a stateswoman. 5, an expert in politics or political government. And 6, a politician is one who seeks to gain power or advancement within an organization in ways that is generally disapproved, unquote. So here I need not add or take away from these lexicographers and their meanings and definition of the word politicians, thereby telling us in no uncertain term or in no uncertain words who and what a politician is. So in summary, I will just quote from all three dictionaries who and what a politician is. And please bear in mind that my focus is on the so-called African leaders who, and by their fruits, have proven themselves to be real and true politicians. Dictionary 1. A politician is a person who acts in a manipulative and devious way, typically to gain advancement within an organization. Dictionary 2. A politician is often disparaging a person primarily interested in political office for selfish or other narrow, usually short-sighted reasons. And Dictionary 3, a politician is, Dictionary 3, which is dictionary.com, a politician is a seeker or holder of public office who is more concerned about winning favor or retaining power than about maintaining principles. And definition 6, a politician is a person who seeks to gain power or advancement within an organization in ways that are generally disapproved. Unquote. Please verify this for yourselves right here online. So if this is true, then we can only logically and sensibly conclude that a politician is not a good person and that politicians are not good people. We must also logically conclude that all good African leaders that are called politicians are not politicians, but simply put, they are good and great leaders. And it is by their fruits, meaning by their works and their deeds, that is how we know them. So good people, good leaders, are only being mistakenly called politicians. And finally, from these dictionaries definitions, we must also logically and sensibly conclude that all our good and great African leaders that call themselves politicians and answer to the name and title politicians are doing so in gross ignorance. They really and truly don't know the meaning and definitions of the word politicians, and that they are not politicians. In the first place, it is not their language. It is the language of the invader, the conqueror, and colonizer, aka the British and the English language. Because from the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, no genuinely good, honest, and sincere human, and especially an African, would knowingly, willfully, or intentionally call him or herself a politician. So here again, let me borrow the quote from the Adamic Race History and Holy Book, wherein the Adamic race God named Yahweh, who through one of his prophets called Jeremiah, was admonishing his Adamic race, aka his people, some of whom is commonly known as Israel. And I quote, "This is what the Lord, or this is what Yahweh says. Curse is the one who trusts in man, who depends on flesh for his strength, and whose heart turns away from the Lord or from Yahweh. He will be like a bush in the wastelands. He will not see prosperity when it comes. He will dwell in the parched places of the desert, in a salt land where no one lives." Unquote. Jeremiah 17:5, New International Version. Now this is what the spirits of our source, our African ancestors and our ancestral gods are saying to us all Africans. That message was not for you. I'm just borrowing it. It's not for us. That's for the Adamic race people, from the Adamic race God. But this is what the spirits of our source, our African ancestors and our ancestral gods are saying to us African people, the natural native earthly humans that are commonly called Africans. And I quote, and I say it this way: curse is the one who trusts in man, who depends on flesh for his strength, and whose heart turn away from his source and ancestral gods. He will be like a bush in the wasteland. He will not see prosperity when it comes. He will dwell in the parched places of the desert, in a salt land where no one lives. Thus, cursed be the African man, the African woman, or the African people that trust in a politician or in politicians. Consequently, you are therefore doomed to deception, manipulation, invasion, corruption, disappointment, misfortune, you name it. And the list goes on and on and on. So now that hopefully you know and understand who and what a politician is, let me now address, explain, and briefly share some of my perspectives on the following question. What is an alien species? And 2, what is an invasive alien species? And 3, what makes a species, also known as an alien species, invasive? And hopefully, these 3 answers draw the direct analogy with the Neo Colonizers, aka the Chinese, as it pertains to them invading and colonizing our motherland, Africa. What is an alien species? According to greenfacts.org, and I quote, an alien species is a species introduced outside its normal distribution. Question 2. What is an invasive alien species? According to the same greenfacts.org website, and I quote, that I've quoted above, an invasive alien species are alien species whose establishment and spread modify ecosystems, habitats, or species, unquote. Question 3. What makes a species, aka an alien species, invasive? Well, according to an article titled Invasive Species, How They Affect the Environment, that is found on a website called environmentalscience.org, and the subtitle, What Makes a Species Invasive? And I quote, introducing a species into a new environment may have a variety of outcomes. An exotic or alien species is one that has been introduced to a new place, but does not necessarily have negative consequences. For example, many fish species have been introduced into the Great Lakes for sport fishing. They have no documented negative impacts and provide recreational opportunities and a food source. However, when these alien species begin to have negative consequences in the new habitat, they are called invasive species. Invasive species may cause environmental harm, economic harm, or impact human health, unquote. From the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, and the evidence will affirm this fact, that the species are more correctly the alien and exotic species that have invaded Africa, the new and pristine environment of Africa, and is invading Africa. The new and pristine environment, the alien exotic species that were warmly and naively welcomed by African politicians and are still today being warmly and naively welcomed by African politicians. The alien and exotic species that have now begun to show their true colors, their true nature and characteristics, that are beginning to show us the rest of the world who and what they are. The alien and exotic invasive species that are now negatively affecting our pristine African environment, thereby causing environmental harm, economic harm, and are impacting the physical, mental, and spiritual health of my people, the people of Africa, or the humankind, aka the humankind species called Chinese. Finally, for now, let me remind you of Charles Darwin's prophecy from one of his books called The Descent of Man and Selection in Relation to Sex. This book that was first published in the years 1871, approximately 150 years ago, and I quote, "At some future period, not distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace throughout the world the savage races. At the same time, the anthropomorphous apes, as Professor Schack, I can't pronounce this German name, has remarked, will no doubt be exterminated. The break will then be rendered wider, for it will intervene between man in a more civilized state, as we may hope, than the Caucasian and some ape as low as a baboon, instead of as a present between the Negro and Australian, or Australian and the gorilla," unquote. Again, at some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace throughout the world the savage races. That's Charles Darwin. Just ask yourselves, my fellow African people, who are the people that Charles Darwin was referring to as the civilized race? And who was he referring to as the savage races? And who are the people that these civilized races of man today see, treat, and call the savage race and savage races? I need not say anything more, but to ask that you watch one of my other video presentation here online titled "The Civilized Races of Mankind," a Charles Darwin's end time prophecy revealed. Watch both part 1 and part 2. So now hopefully, with this limited amount of time, I have accomplished all my objectives as was promised, which are, first and foremost, my main objectives was to identify, name, and call out by name characteristics, and from my perspective, who and what the Neo Colonizers, aka the Neo or the New Colonialism, that are taking over Mother Africa. And 2, to show and prove the power of words and some of the secrets that are encoded in them. Or if you prefer, the secrets that are encoded in words. 3, to show the difference between trusting, believing, and knowing. 4, to show the potential danger that exists if or when we confuse believing or confuse trusting with knowing by thinking or accepting that they are the same. And 5, to briefly explain the meaning and definition of a curse and what it is. 6, show and prove that to mistake or to confuse trust with knowledge can be a curse. and that it is indeed a curse. 7 was to show and expose to you all my African brothers and sisters who and what a politician by meaning and definition really and truly is. 8 is to explain what is an invasive species and to draw the analogy with the Neo Colonizers, also known as the Chinese. And 9 to briefly remind you of Charles Darwin's prophecy. 10 to hopefully appeal to your activated common sense that you need to get up, stand up and defend with your life, if needs be, our motherland called Africa. And 11 is to prove to you that if you don't root up and root out an invasive alien species, as soon as you recognize it, then it will most certainly root you up, root you out, and replace you with itself or with and by themselves. Ashe, 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 I say. And thanks for listening. I am the Mystic Philosopher.